And joining me now with reaction to my opening statement and much more, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. All right, good evening, Congressman. I understand that even you yourself were involved a bit in in some of these tropes, where you made a comment and Ilhan Omar actually came after you.
Well, in that first, when she tweeted about all about the Benjamins, that was referring to an article that a reporter wrote that I was asking Nancy Pelosi to stand up to these new Democrat socialists who are making these anti-Semitic comments. And, Judge, this is the week these new Democrat socialists have taken over the party. They've taken over the leadership because they won this week. Nancy Pelosi said she was going to stand up to her and move a resolution that just dealt with this subject. It wouldn't name her, and she couldn't even pass that. She had to water it down. They now own the Democratic Party, which is now the Democrat Socialist Party. And you were correct. When you appease, history has taught us, there is a rise of anti-Semitism. We already stood up to Congresswoman Omar just a few weeks ago, and she just repeated it, even, which I believe worse, questioning the allegiance and the alliance of American Jews. Could they be true to America? We heard these questions asked, history in the past, and what did history say? And we can never allow that to repeat itself. That's why it's so important, not one party, but all America stands up to this. But
you know what, Congressman, I understand that Nancy Pelosi is you know, look, she's been the speaker twice, and as a woman, I mean, she is probably, in terms of women in Congress, I mean, she's the most powerful woman in Congress. I mean, and it has been.
By far.
By far. So. And she's the
Not
one.
This week.
Didn't her daughter say something like she'll stab you in the back or cut you and you won't even know you've been cut? So
yes.
Why did she bend? What happened? Is she worried that these young women are going to take over? Is she watching the attention that they're getting and therefore is concerned about her own future?
Well, remember what took place. She was on the cover of the Rolling Stones with the young new congresswomen who call themselves Democrat socialists. That's not what I say. That's what they call themselves. Right. Then we heard the comments that Congresswoman Omar said. You had the Jewish members stand up and say, this is wrong, she should apologize. And then the Democrat leadership said, we're going to stand up, because last time it was the Republican Party who stood up and brought it to the floor.
Right.
But they had to backtrack. We know Speaker Pelosi is a very strong woman, but she lost this week. She had to backpedal and say no, she couldn't bring that to the floor.
Why?
And then she had
I still don't know why.
Congresswoman Cortez stood up and defended Congresswoman Omar. You had the new progressives that are running presidentially.
So you got three women there. They're going to scare Nancy Pelosi?
They did, and I think that is the new movement in this Democrat Socialist Party. They have overtaken this leadership. You watched it happen this week. This is the mark of the date of the week that they have now overtaken the Democratic Party.
And I'm going to ask you one last question. Bernie Sanders made this statement. He said, what I fear going on in the House is an effort to target Congresswoman Omar as a way of stifling debate, and that's wrong. I mean, talk about turning the aggressor into the victim. I mean, and then, by the way, she's taken a victory lap. She never even apologized to anyone. She's going to double down again.
Think of this. The first time she went forward, when the Republicans threatened to bring a resolution to the floor, the Democrats said she needed to apologize. This time, she repeats it, and they don't even say she has to apologize. When we had somebody of our own party in the Republican Party say something that we disagreed with as Americans, disagreed with as the party of Lincoln, the Republicans stood up and removed him from committees. The Democrats keep her on foreign affairs. I think there's a real contrast here in leadership. But what is scary to me as an American, when I see the rise of anti-Semitism around the world, and I see appeasement and what history has taught us about appeasement, I know those people, I know the Democrats on the other side of the aisle, many of them did not want to see this end the way it did. They want to stand up to her, and that's what I believe is wrong.
They better learn. They better learn. Leader Kevin McCarthy, thank you so much for being with us. And
thank you, Judge.
Welcome back. Bombshell new development in the wake of Michael Cohen's hearing on Capitol Hill. Republicans now asking if he was coached by Democrats beforehand. Sources say that Cohen met with the staff of Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff 4 times over 10 hours leading up to his public testimony last week. Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, defending the move, saying it was, quote, completely appropriate, and he would have done the same thing for Republicans had they asked. Dana, I'm going to start with you because I know you're
I'm sorry, Brian is writing notes on my page, and I can't read what it says.
We had a pregame.
So
I feel it was...
For the people at home, the reason I'm going to Dana and Brian first is they were getting into this before, so they're both fired up. So
I'm not fired up. I don't really care.
Well, okay, so Dana,
thanks.
All right.
Well, here's the thing. You think it's a huge deal that Adam Schiff is shifty and that it's a problem. But you just said.
So Dana, Adam Schiff is downplaying this, saying that it's completely normal. Is it?
Well, I want to hear her yell at Brian more. Brian, you yell back at her.
Well, someone start, and then the other. Dana, you go first.
Lanny Davis is the lawyer, right? He's a good one. He's been through this before. And the committee said, you're coming up here because you're going to have to talk to us because you lied to us the last time you were here. We want to see you up here. We're going to go through this so we can walk it through. Maybe that's inappropriate, except for that they offered it to the Republicans as well. The Republicans didn't want to do it. Okay, fine. That's fine. But the two biggest headlines that came out of Michael Cohen's testimony, the number one thing that President Trump wanted, Michael Cohen said, no evidence of collusion, number one. So did the Democrats coach him to say that? And the second headline was, President Trump did not directly tell me to lie. Okay, so those are the two things that the president could possibly be in trouble for. Michael Cohen sides with the president on those two things. So if the Democrats were trying to coach him, they didn't do a very good job.
So Brian's raising his hand. So Brian, ding, 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 you're next. Go.
Okay, first off, what bothers me is the deception. When he asked, Adam Schiff says, who was just talking about logistics and he was worried about his security. That's not true. They met 5 different times for 12 hours. My goodness. And you told me something I didn't know. I did not know Republicans were invited to come to New York and meet with him. So if that's true,
that's a little different. They had the opportunity to do it. And
they were a little bit surprised that it was at this length. They had no idea. That's why Turner wrote that letter saying, did you actually rehearse this? Was this a rehearsal? Some of the Q&As that got on the record. Number two is the Benghazi hearings. All the controversy with the Benghazi hearings. There was one time in which a Democrat was not invited to a one-on-one session with a key witness because a whistleblower wasn't too secure with what he was going to say that it wouldn't have leaked out to the media. And Elijah Cummings went crazy. So just do it the same way. There's no legal reason to bring Republicans in, but it's the right thing to do traditionally. And it did come out. They said that he changed. They said that Trump lawyers changed his remarks. And they didn't. That turned out to be wrong. They didn't change his remarks because they found his original, the Moscow Tower talk stopped in January. That's exactly what he intended to say.
I think that if you look at the Cohen hearings, at the end of the day, did it help or hurt President Trump? And I would argue that it absolutely helped him.
Well, and to that point, Greg, I want to get you in on this.
Please do.
To the point that Dana just made, does it help?
I wasn't listening.
Oh, well, that does not help.
You're not interested? You're not listening? What's going on with this show?
I'm kidding.
How do you get the ratings you get?
I'm joking because we're real. Unlike your crazy show in the morning.
You don't even know they're on in the morning. You're sleeping till noon.
Does it help order in the court? Does it help anyone to embrace Michael Cohen? Because if
he's quite crazy. To your point about Adam, what's his Schiff being shifty? I don't think people keep saying he's like Joe McCarthy, right? He's on this witch hunt. That's what the Republicans compare. He's more, in my opinion, like Charlie McCarthy, in that he's a doll on strings, and the strings are pulled by an activist media. He's doing all of this because he's being rewarded with the spotlight. He's so wooden and stiff, he makes John Kerry look like a gummy worm. But he is in control of the media, and as long as the media is chasing this, he'll keep chasing them.
Well, I gotta say, I gotta introduce you to Devin Nunes, because if you think of a
him.
guy who was playing
play
in the media and absolutely a stooge for President Trump, guess what? That was Devin Nunes when he was in charge of House Intel. So I mean, I don't see how that's. And let me just finish. And I think that when you stop and review the idea that this is a witness who had lied to them in 2017 to the Congress. The idea that they would say, well, we want to review what you're going to talk about. We want to know what you have knowledge of so that we can prepare going over things like catch and kill stories with the National Enquirer, exactly what was the relationship with David Pecker.
David Axelrod put out a tweet in response to the House Judiciary Committee's sweeping document request from 81 people saying that this plays into President Trump's witch hunt narrative. Doesn't it?
No, it plays into a media narrative that tries to say it because the Congress has a legitimate oversight.
But all these people have already been part of Mueller's investigation.
No, this is a distortion. I'm so sorry that David Axelrod bought into this distortion because you want the Congress to ascertain the facts before bringing any charges or going after impeachment. They aren't doing that.
Isn't it
They're
redundant,
gathering
though?
facts. That's their legitimate role.
But isn't it redundant, though, when Mueller has already been doing this investigation since 2017?
No, it's not.
You've got both
We
the
don't
House
even
and
know
Senate
what's in the
committees
Mueller
investigating.
report. So, I mean, let's assume that Mueller comes up with nothing.
The head of the Senate Judiciary Committee is demanding answers tonight about what he described as, quote, what amounts to a coup against the president by top Justice Department officials. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge has details tonight. Good evening, Catherine.
Thank you, Brett, and good evening. The letter to Attorney General William Barr seeks all records, including the so-called McCabe memos drafted by the former acting FBI director. The Republican chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Lindsey Graham, said he is formally investigating allegations that Andrew McCabe, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, among others, discussed secretly recording the president and invoking the 25th Amendment. Quote, the committee is deeply concerned with these discussions and whether they essentially indicate that two of the highest-ranking law enforcement officials in the United States were discussing what amounts to a coup against the president. Also today, unsealed records from a defamation case show how the anti-Trump dossier was circulated before and after the 2016 election. The court records confirm that David Kramer, then an aide to the late Senator John McCain, gave the dossier to BuzzFeed News, as well as about a dozen reporters. Kramer told the court he was singled out by the dossier's author, former British spy Christopher Steele, to lend credibility to the Democrat-funded opposition research. The project was run by Glenn Simpson's Fusion GPS. Quote, I think they felt a senior Republican was better to be the recipient of this rather than a Democrat, because if it were a Democrat, I think that the view was that it would have been dismissed as a political attack. The FBI's former counterterrorism Intelligence Chief Bill Priestap also filed a declaration confirming the FBI got the dossier's first 33 pages from McCain in December 2016, though the FBI was already receiving the memos from other sources. Priestap also confirmed President Obama was briefed on the unverified dossier by senior intelligence officials, including then DNI James Clapper, 10 days before the inauguration, Brett.
Okay, Captain, thank you.
You're welcome.